Hello, hello. You are probably wondering why I look like a drowned rat right now. Couple reasons. Definitely didn't wash my hair yesterday, so it just kind of on the greasy side. Also, went to the gym before this and just taught a class in there. So I'm sweating a lot. Like, sorry, that's gross, but body shaming doesn't bother me. Don't be ashamed. I don't know. Anyways, today I actually wanted to talk about something that is really cool to do with art, and it kind of like levels you up a little bit, and that's shading. So if you start to apply shading into the work that you're doing, it's going to give it a certain level of just like advanced technique, for lack of a better term. We're going to go into this really, really simply. I'm going to show you, I can't remember who was doing this. Man, it's one of our students, and I can't remember. Lonnie, I think it was Lonnie. Think so. She did this last week in class. And I'm showing you this because this demonstrates like the most basic form of shadowing that we can start with as students, right? And that is, if you'll notice, she took a darker color. It's actually a marker. She used marker and I think colored pencil or crayon. The colored pencil, and she darkened the outside, and then when she went back in with the colored pencil, it's the same color, but it's a shade lighter, or several shades lighter. But what that's doing is causing your eye to see, especially when you look from it back here, it looks just darker and then lighter in here. And I wish I had like a ball or something. Never ever works. Okay, well, kind of. You see my fist. And see where it's lighter up here than it is down here, and that's because the light is hitting it right there. Okay, so in this case, the light from this is coming straight on. And that's what we're going to practice first and foremost to get our shading down, is the light coming from straight on. Do you guys get what I mean when I say that? It's because this is the lightest part, right? So this is being like, it's the part that's hitting the most. So again, with this light, see how I'm shaded over here? It's because the light is coming from this way. So the light hits in a spot, and that part is the brightest. And then the opposite of that is the darkest, because this side of my face isn't being exposed to the light because it's being taken up by this side. Does that make sense? It's super difficult to explain, but once you get it, you're gold. And I used to hate that analogy too, by the way, like that lesson about the light, like where the light's hitting it. But now it's just something good to look back on and see if I actually have shading in the right areas. Or as Dwight Schrute would say, any Office fans in here? Come on. Okay, well, The Office, Dwight Schrute makes fun of Pam because she's an art student, and she does this really great drawing of like The Office, but it's outside in the parking lot. And it's awesome. But Dwight goes, please, the shading is is all off. What are there, two suns? What is this, office in the Andromeda Galaxy? I just butchered that entire thing, but what is this, an office in the Andromeda Galaxy? What is this, an office in, you get it. Meaning there are two suns in the Andromeda Galaxy or something like that. Because she had light coming technically from like on this car and on this car. So it looked like but it's not something you would notice. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. But let's just demonstrate on a couple of things in my sketchbook that is already developed. So we have this one. Do you guys remember this one? I know he's super creepy. I know. It's already kind of started because, of course, the outline is black. So I'm going to show you what it looks like close up when I go ahead and go in with some shading. So all I'm doing, and I did start it on this one, so this is actually a really good example. But basically, I just go around the entire edge of it and make it darker. Now, there's a lot of ways you can do this. As you know, as our lovely friend Lonnie did, she literally just outlined it in marker, and I'm going to show you what that would look like. Okay, that's one way to do it. However, if you look closely at it, that looks really good. It's really bold. But you can take this up a notch, and I'm going to teach you how. There's a very fine distinction, right? There's a very fine line between this is black and this is white. You know, there's no blurring there. And we kind of want there to be some blurring because that's more realistic. So, in fact, I shouldn't use her paper. So the brush stroke I'm going to show you is as follows. You put your pen down and you flick. Or your marker, color pencil, whatever. And you do multiple. So you're just going to be doing this. Okay? And now by doing that, by flicking it like that, it's kind of automatically pulling my pencil away from the paper. And so that's going to make that area lighter. Also, if we start our strokes from here and we start all of them from this part and they go this way and then straight and then to the right, like that, they're all coming from this. And we talked about this a little bit before, but if they're all coming from that same central point, that point is going to be darker, right? Because you're coloring it often. So there, it's shading. So that's what we're going to do now. So I'm going to go around and highlight this entire thing because it does look really sharp when you use a marker. And then, like I said, I kind of already started it. You can see that a little bit. See? So I'm just going to be adding those wispy lines. And you can go as close into it or as little as you want, depending on how much contrast you want to be in that shadow. But for now, let's just keep them to a simple, like, that much, like, I don't know, almost an inch, half inch, almost an inch, 3/4 inch. You see how big that is? So before you start practicing on like an actual image, I just want you guys to practice that motion. So again, and the goal is to get them and to do it so fast that you put them directly next to each other. So if I go like this, and then I'm like, oh my God, I have to match it perfectly. I'm going to want to trace along. That's not what we want. Because you're going to make these lines until it's the shape that you want. Make sense? So again, if I look at this up closely and I'm like, oh my God, how am I supposed to put a perfect line right there next to it? You're not. So I don't want you tracing that line. It shouldn't be like a perfect line, a perfect line, a perfect line. I mean, you definitely can do that, but I'm trying to teach you this motion, this technique. I don't know what it's called. We're just going to call it the Amy Whippy lines. Amy Whippy lines. Okay, so starting from a point, let's just do that. Let's start with a dot. And then take your pencil, and I want you to go whip all the way around. So it's a circle, right? Your dot is a circle. You're going to go all the way around it. Until you get to back to the beginning, and then you can keep on going around until all of the spots are filled in, until there's no space in between any of the lines. So see how it is kind of like a star right now? I'm just going to go back and add really fast whippies. So it's basically what you're doing is coloring it, but instead of going back and forth, you're only going in one direction. That's a great way to explain it. That's exactly what it is. Ta-da! So you can see, again, like I was just saying before, I was starting everything from this point, okay? So that means I'm touching that exact area every single time. So 100% of the time it's being touched. So that means it's gonna be the darkest, right? Because you're coloring that area the most. You're making a mark right there the most. As opposed to out here, that's really only getting hit once. I mean, a couple times probably, okay? Speaking of that, cross hatching is another really cool thing you can do, especially with like ballpoint pen or even marker. As you can tell with marker, we can't really do that wispy thing. Like, I mean, I guess you kind of can, but it's really difficult. And so another way to shade with things like marker is called cross hatching. And I know I've mentioned this before, So you're gonna make your wispy lines. Let's just do them. I have this like pleat right here. I'm just gonna try and make like a straight line all the way across with my wispy lines. And also, I forgot to say this, we're gonna keep them a little bit more spaced out this time. So watch what I mean. So I'm making my wispy lines and they're more spaced out. Now, first of all, to add more shading to this, really all I have to do is add more lines in between, but watch what happens when I do this. All I'm doing is angling it just a little. So I was making lines like this. This second pass, we'll call it a pass. The second time I go over it, my lines are going like this. They're not going a full like 90 degrees. They're just going a little bit to the side because that way, watch. Here's 1, 2, 3 lines. If I do a small angle, it crosses through all of those. Okay? So you're basically just crossing the long way through everything. So again, like now I just basically made that all one shade. Let's say I have, let me give you an example here. Trying to come up with like a picture that could demonstrate that. Okay, well, I mean, this is pretty advanced, so I'm not expecting you guys to actually be drawing full realistic portraits right now. But let's just say, for, you know, the sake of demonstration, here's my guy, right? He's got a nose right here. The light is coming from this way. Sorry, that's his mouth. Look at my guy. Good guy. The light is coming from up here. So that means this side would be what? Lighter or darker? Lighter, right? Because it's hitting right there on that side of my face. Now, I'm going to use myself as a reference again. In this case, kind of similar to that one. The light is coming from this angle, right? You can see it right there. Right? It's coming right down on me like that. Now, because I have a nose and it's all like a bump on my face, really, that's shadowing, that's casting a shadow onto this side of my face. So like, you know when you stand under a tree, like one side of the tree is hit with light and then the other side is the shadow, right? So pretend this is a tree, basically. So I'm going to use my nose as a reference when I'm shading this. And these are just going to be really small lines. So again, the light's coming from this side. So this side of the nose is going to be shaded. Little teeny lines. And honestly, that right there is great. But if you have something like, again, looking at my face, like this is kind of darkish, right? Right here. This is definitely the darkest. So to make a difference between the darkest and darkish is going to be, this would be like darkish. Darkest is using your cross, what's it called? Shading. Do you see how dark that is? Now, as opposed to doing small lines on this side, right? This is really advanced stuff right now. This is funny looking, but you can kind of see what I'm doing. So it's kind of almost developing that shape of her cheek right there. And there's some shading, and then this is much, much darker. It's hard to explain where her nose is actually, yeah. Does that make sense? So, to summarize, cross-hatching you can use to darken anything any medium that you're using with shading. So like even if I were to do the exact same thing with this and then cross-hatch it, you can totally do it with this. And you probably will do that a lot. We're not going to get too much into that because it's super advanced and you have to understand a lot more before you understand that. But for shading, wispy lines, Amy wispy lines, and I want, it's all in your wrist too. A lot of this like technique stuff is literally like, it's like dance. Like, so some of you guys that come to dance, which I think should be all of you, it's a lot like that. It's the same technique. So I don't want you going like this. I mean, honestly, that's kind of working, but for the sake of going fast, right, we're just doing, see how I'm moving? It's not even my wrist, really. It's just my fingers, okay? Once you get to a bigger surface, and you will be using your wrist. Like if it's like big ones like this, right? And that's all my wrist. Make sense? So, wispy lines, in conclusion, the wispy line thing is the brush stroke that you're going to be using to make shading. And you always start from, for now, the outside edge working into the middle, because again, light is hitting boop right here, just for now. That's what we're learning. We're learning shading when the light is directly in front of you, basically. Okay, so again, to just kind of finish this out, wispy lines, and so they're going into the center of the piece. I do it into the center so that they're all like the same length. And to be honest with you guys, I've told you a million times that my nickname is Amy Ink, and it's because I love using ballpoint pen to shade, because you can get this same effect with a ballpoint pen that you can with colored pencil or anything or something. But colored pencil, like, the less sharp that it becomes, the wider the surface that you're using is, and it goes way faster. It requires way less actual strokes, and it just looks a little bit smoother. So I kind of really like this colored pencil dealy. Maybe they should call me Amy Lead. Get it? Because Amy Ink, Amy Lead. Maybe that's you. Maybe you're Leslie Lead, Leo Lead, or Pam Pencil. That would be a fun project. You guys come up with your art names. I just really want you to get the feel of this stroke before anything else, because what I do is, you know, again, advanced when I talk about like where to place the shading and stuff. But for right now, okay, let's do another one actually. Let's do my puppy dog, maybe. Hello? May I help you? Yeah, let's color on this puppy dog. Let's go around his wrinkles. I tend to try and stay with the paper facing the same way so that when I get down here, it's just a different stroke entirely. So in fact, I'm not actually pulling this way, although you can do that. This is just, if this stuff is easy for you. Let's just stick with what you know. So yeah, later on I will show you how to do it without turning the page, but for now we might as well just turn it so that we can do the same inward, upward stroke all the way around the puppy. Cool, sweet. See? Now, hello. No, it's okay. Yeah, go ahead, go ahead. It's okay, you're all good. And then, so again, speaking about that cross hatching, hi guys. Who?
Tell us where Froggy is so nobody gets hurt.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Small, tiny frog, green, abused.
I don't know. Hold on, don't get on here.
Currently being watched by CPS.
Guys, I love you to death, but I am filming, so can I finish this really quick? Thank you so much. I literally have like 4 more minutes. Sorry, I just don't want you to get in trouble or whatever. Sorry, I love you. Okay, again, speaking about cross-hatching, so we just did those same wispy lines all the way around, right? Now, if I go at it, so these lines here, again, are going this way, right? If I go back in and do a different angle of that line, instead of going like this, I'm going like this. See that? It's just going to add a little bit more dimension. Check that out. See, that's where I was doing the cross-hatching thing. It's just going over it again with your pencil in a different direction, basically. So I'm going to do that all the way around now, actually. I tend to kind of, when I go on that second pass, kind of follow the lines that are already there. And so then this is a good example because you'll be able to see the the difference between the marker and then the cross hatching and then the regular shady lines. And to be honest, do you see how I'm doing this now? Once you get to that like third pass, all bets are off. You can do whatever it takes to get that shading. But the point is to have the darkest point like at the top. And if there's two lines, so there's this line here and there's this line here and they meet right here, that's going to be the intersection where it's going to be really dark. So ultimately you're going to be doing these quick lines from that center point. Okay, and then the same goes for this part right here because it's kind of like two lines meeting up. So it's kind of the corner of him, of his roll. Look how cute he looks. See how I'm kind of just coloring that in just to get it down, and then I'm using those same lines to finish it off. And we're cross-hatching the first pass here. And actually, you know what? His roll wouldn't just stop right there, right? The shading actually wouldn't just stop right there where that marker stops. So we're just gonna make like a little like blurb around it. And I know I'm going fast. You don't have to be following along. You can just be watching this. Okay, now I'm just getting that color on in the places that need it. And then using those wispy lines. And some cross hatching. Okay, so this was a really, really rough explanation of it. This is something that we'll go over and over and over, and it'll probably come up like when I'm like, here, draw a puppy. We'll probably incorporate some of this cross hatching in the exact same way that we've been incorporating things like shape, things like color theory. I don't know, stuff like that. We even did it, because remember we did it with this little puppy. I said, see where that line intersects with that line? That part is going to be the darkest right there. And doesn't it look a little bit more realistic with that part a little bit darker? So just practice with that. Practice with like a outline of an image, a puppy, a heart, I don't care. Maybe do it in marker or a really dark pen. Right? And we're just going around the heart. And you can do sideways ones, but I do want you to practice that wispy line thing. And the ultimate goal is to get it to go from blackest to blackish and then to white. And it's got to be pretty gradual. That's what we're working on, which is also called a gradient. And we should do an entire class on that. Maybe we'll do that next week too. And it like in line with this idea. Okay, I have some antsy kids here, as you saw. So I should go tend to them, distract them or something, and I will see you guys on the flippity flop.